Hi there, I am DJ Waldow, and I'm turning 50 on February 23rd, 2026. So, for the next 50 days, I'm sharing one thing that I have learned. Today's thing: dress the part. Okay, thing number 17: dress the part. You can never be overdressed. Let me stress that again. I'll say it slower. You can never be overdressed. So if you're watching this right now, not just listening to the audio, you can see I have a sport coat on. I kind of did my hair up with some gel. I've got a nice shirt underneath. I'm dressing the part. Although, I don't know, is 50 things something where I should dress up for? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I'm overdressed. Maybe, but you can never be overdressed. I learned this lesson when I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. I was working in Durham, North Carolina at an email marketing company called Bronto. I was about the same age as the two founders. Everybody else was, I think, younger than me, probably in their early 20s. Most were single, most didn't have kids. I was a little bit older and more mature in the company. And we were probably, I don't know, 12 or 15 people max. And I always dressed kind of how everybody else dressed. Well, not the founders. They sort of dressed up most of the time, but I dressed like most of the other staff dressed. I had on, you know, it was the early 2000s. I had on those cargo shorts with the big pockets. I had on some ratty t-shirt or whatever, and that's what I wore. I mean, we were working at a tech company. Isn't that what you wear? I remember the distinct moment in time where Joe was the one of the founders of Bronto. Joe came to me in a meeting and he said, DJ, you got to start dressing up. We're looking at him and pausing and, in my late 20s, early 30s, getting super defensive and thinking to myself, what the hell does this guy know? He's only a couple years older than me. What do you mean dress up? I want to dress however the hell I want to dress. And I think I did for the next few days. And then, I don't know, something hit me and I said, yeah, maybe I'll dress up a little bit. And an interesting thing happened, and probably not surprising, but it was to me at the time. I started to get a little bit more respect in the organization. I think people started to look up to me a little bit more. I became a little bit more of a leader within Bronto that day that I started dressing up. So I continued dressing up from that day forward. And to be clear, I just said earlier, you can never be overdressed. There's no such thing as overdressed. I didn't wear a tux, I didn't wear a suit, but I dressed business casual. I wore a button down. I brushed my hair. I didn't wear a backwards hat. Did I miss being casual? Yeah, of course. But it worked. I played the part, and it helped me advance my career while at Bronto, and also helped me as I grew my career to the next organization and the next and the next. Now, did I always dress up? No, of course not. I've certainly dressed down days. I certainly had a backwards hat on some days and a hoodie or whatever. But for the most part, when I was working in an office, I did my best to dress up, and it made a difference. Now in my 40s, and as I approach 50, and I'm in the athleisure generation for sure, I have fully embraced it. I love me some Viore, Vioria, whatever it's called. I love it. I even love the knockoffs they sell at Costco. And yeah, oftentimes I'm found at Starbucks sitting in my athleisure. But I'm also in a place when I'm at Starbucks and when I'm doing my freelance writing that I don't have to really be taken too seriously. And I am okay with that. But there are certainly many other times where I'm out and about on town, going to see a show, where I will definitely put on something nicer. And it does make a difference. There is something about being dressed up where you feel more professional, more of an adult. And I think there are times and places for that for sure. I can remember not too long ago, I was going out to dinner with a group of friends. And as we were leaving, I looked and my wife was super dressed up. She was fancy. She looked great. Of course, she always looks great, but she looked great. She was dressed up. I remember about to get in the car and I looked around. I said, you know what? I gotta put on some nicer clothes. And I did. I just felt great the rest of the night. It really did make a difference. And I can promise you this: I have felt underdressed many times in my life, in my personal life, and in my business career. It's an awful feeling when everyone around you is dressed up. But the opposite is different. Never felt overdressed. I've gone into parties before in a tux. I've gone in a jacket like this, and other people have had backwards hats and jeans and all. never felt uncomfortable being overdressed. For a lot of you that work from home, I know many people who work from home that dress up even if they're not going to be on camera because it just makes them feel better. Full disclosure, I am not one of those people. I am athleisure all day, baby. But there are times when I'm on a Zoom where I do put a fancy top on. And I know all you people out there that put a nice fancy top on that have your go-to fancy and nothing underneath, or maybe shorts, but sometimes nothing. You never know unless you stand up. Don't stand up in a Zoom unless you're fully clothed. Pro tip. That's a free one. But here's how I know it works. Every time I leave the house in the morning, the few occasions where I'm dressed up, sometimes to go somewhere, sometimes just because I want to look a little nicer that day. One of my kids inevitably says to me, Dad, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you so dressed up? Why are you so fancy? And there's definitely times again where I do it because I am going somewhere to see other humans. But there's also times that I just want to look nice. I'm not telling you to do this out of vanity, like you must look nice when you leave the house, but it does matter. Your image, how you dress, does portray into the world how you want to be seen. There are definitely situations to underdress. And I have one final example for you. I recently did an interview that hopefully will be live soon for Long Drink. It was on a podcast called The Curious Consumer, and I was talking about how I was Long Drink's biggest fan. And during the second half of the interview, of course, I wore my Long Drink robe. That was an underdress moment, but an intentional underdress. All right, that is it. That is thing number 17. Dress the part. As always, if you like this podcast, please follow, like, subscribe, go to Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. Those social media platforms where I put the clips, the shorts, the teasers. You've got to go to 50things.co for the full thing. Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube for the full video or audio. And that is it. Thank you so much.